Central Issues is made possible by contributions from viewers like you.
Welcome to Central Issues. I'm Dave Dellecese. Tonight, we introduce you to a program called Utica Safe Schools, Healthy Students. Founded in 2001, it is designed to combine school district personnel and community efforts to support a common goal of helping children make healthy, safe, and successful life choices. Joining me tonight is Ann Lansing. She's the Executive Director of Utica Safe Schools, and Jeremy Butler, Director of Programs for Utica Safe Schools. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Why don't you guys fill us in a little bit on the program first before we get into some of the problems that you guys tackle.
Great. We are an agency, we're just starting our 10th year as an agency, and we were founded in 2000 through a federal grant that the Utica City School District received, which is called Safe Schools, Healthy Students. And that effort comes from 3 departments in the federal government that came together after Columbine and said we need to support our students and we need to look at the violence that is going on. So Utica was awarded the grant. At the time it was a 3-year grant and brought in about $1.9 million per year. What the district decided to do at the time was to create a nonprofit, which became us. And the whole idea is to bring programs right into the school to address a lot of the violence, drug and alcohol issues, bullying, whatever's going on with the kids so that we can get them to achieve in school. And our mission is to reduce the barriers to success for students.
And Jeremy, as Director of Programming for Utica Safe Schools, what exactly is your role?
Well, I oversee all of the different programs and services that we offer. We offer a variety of services. As Ann said, we currently have 1 coordinator housed in every building in the Utica City School District. I have 5 coordinators housed in 6 buildings in the Rome City School District. And we've just recently, last week, brought on 4 BOCES Safe School specialists who will be working with 11 component districts in the rest of Oneida County. Some of the programs and services that we offer are direct service in the schools where we'll do conflict resolution, mediation, pro-social skills, aggression reduction groups with kids. We also serve as an integral member of the IST, which is the instructional support team. Other school districts might call it their child study team, where we support the schools in helping make connections to outside community agencies, making referrals for kids and families that may be in need of services that aren't available in the school. Kind of a third function that we do is we also coordinate services within the school. So programs like hospice, like Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, we'll help coordinate them and open the doors to the school, get them space, make referrals, get them kids in their programs, and help coordinate those things within the school setting.
Well, one of the things that you guys deal with quite a bit, and a lot of organizations and schools are dealing with, is this very hot topic of cyberbullying. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at some statistics here, and we got 43% of teens have been victims of cyberbullying just in the last year. And 81% of youth said that others cyberbully because they think it's funny, which are just some very, very staggering statistics. Mm-hmm. I'm sure for educators and for parents and society in general, as we kind of find our place in this digital world. How does Utica Safe Schools kind of even begin to start tackling a situation like this, Ann?
I think it's really important to keep talking about it. It's become very different from when we grew up, and certainly for me, where computers didn't exist, cell phones didn't exist when I was in school, and we really need to look at how much more this is affecting the students beyond the school day as well, too, and be able to talk about it. And I think the biggest part that we do as an agency is really work on empathy for students. It's much harder to bully somebody when you're doing it right to their face than when you're doing it and you don't even see the ramifications that your actions or your words have on other students. So it makes it somewhat easier. And I think it's really important that kids understand the impact it has, and adults too. I think, it's not just students, but if adults are okay to bully somebody, what does that say to our kids as well too?
And Ann brought up a good point, Jeremy, is that it extends beyond school. Do you think parents are really aware or as aware as they should be about even what cyberbullying is?
I think there's a general awareness, but I think we don't have a grasp for how large the problem is. And again, you shared some statistics. I think you said that 43% of kids reported being bullied. That's just the number of kids that are reporting cyberbullying. And with any abuse statistic, we know that the actual number is much higher than what's actually being reported. And I think, a lot of times parents it winds up being one of the last things you want to have to acknowledge, that my son or daughter is a bully or that my son or daughter is a victim of being bullied. So I think there is the blinders. I think there's also a disconnect in terms of generations with the increase in technology and having a lack of comfort with some of the things that kids now have access to. There's a very real possibility in any family that the youngest member in the family might be the most technical savvy. So I don't know that parents even fully understand how to monitor or moderate the things that their children are using or even asking for. You know, here we are at the holiday season. Kids are asking for, you know, iPhones and iPod touches and computers and different technology items that will open the door for all kinds of possibilities, but it also opens the door for things like this and cyberbullying.
So parents may not realize that
Absolutely.
While their kid is asking for a phone, they're getting much more than a phone.
Absolutely.
What kind of things can they possibly access from
Well, most of the smartphones now have applications where you can access your Facebook account, you can access Twitter, you can access some of the social media where kids are using to perform the cyberbullying. Other things such as YouTube, where they're posting videos. You know, we'll have situations that occur in schools where bullying will happen, be videotaped, and within minutes it will be posted on YouTube. Just recently, there was a story this morning about a young lady who created a Facebook page under another student's name, which anybody that has a Facebook account knows how easy that is to do. All you need is an email account, put in your name. And, you know, if you search Jeremy Butler on Facebook, you're going to find 100 Jeremy Butlers. So anybody could take anybody's name with the readiness, availability of pictures and things that kids post on things like Facebook. I can go to your Facebook page, click on your picture, save it to my profile, and then I can use that any way that I want. So again, I think, you know, even if there is an understanding of the media itself, there's not a broader understanding of how it can be misused by students.
And what is the best way that you or Utica Safe Schools can offer, or organizations like them, to help kind of bring that to light?
I think it's important to keep talking about this. I mean, we really appreciate being able to come here today, and we need to really keep talking about it. One of the things that we also offer as an agency is we'll go into school buildings and talk about bully prevention, which really can mean the whole culture change in a building. It doesn't mean, you know, we want you to find out, you know, look at just talking to kids, but you also have to look at adults, you have to look at parents, you have to look at the people in the building. Where is it accepted, where is it not? And we very much, as adults, are role models for the kids and what can be expected. And we have to also make sure kids understand that there's an adult somewhere that they can go to. Because I think the biggest fear with some of the things that we've heard is the ramifications of what will happen if I tell somebody I'm being bullied. And if they've been threatened in any way, if they share anything, or you know, you don't know how far that threat will go. And I think the young woman that was on the Today Show said, you know, she was, by her community, said, don't do that, don't expose them, don't go forward with this. And so what does that say to you? That, you know, are we accepting of it, are we not? You know, we can become worried about the bully instead of the bully, the one that's being bullied. And I think we need to look at everybody. So we really need to talk about it. And my fear is, how much more is technology going to go, and how bigger can this problem be? And we really need to tackle it now.
Right.
And Jeremy, I mean, either one, feel free to chime in here. As the technology is expanding, we were talking about just a moment ago, Jeremy, you were mentioning parents not necessarily being aware of the technology they're giving their kids. With that in mind, are you finding that they're more and more unaware of how to handle these type of bullying situations? It used to be you know, call up the other parent, your kid's been picking on my kid on the playground. This is a whole new world out there. Are you finding parents prepared, unprepared for it?
I would think, as a parent myself, I think, you know, you try to be as prepared as you possibly can. But even with, I have a son who's soon to be 15, I can say, hey, I want your Facebook login, I want your username, I want your password, and I can access his account anytime I want. And that, me being a parent, that's being a responsible parent. But what I don't know is, does he have 3 Facebook pages? You know, does he have one for show that I'm aware of, but then has another one where he's posting, you know, more racy pictures or saying different things that he otherwise wouldn't want me to see? I don't know that. And then therein lies the challenge. And again, you know, I can moderate what happens from my home on my computers, but I don't know what's happening when he's at friends' houses using other computers, or when they're at school, or when they're at the public library, or using technology in other places. It's very difficult to moderate that.
And you know, jumping off of there, we can get into the whole boundaries between parents and children momentarily after the break, but when it comes to what's in your control and what's not, what role does the schools, and in this case an organization like Utica Safe Schools, play for these type of things that happen outside of school?
I think it's very hard. You know, I think one of the issues that we deal with too is that, you know, whatever's going on outside in the community tends to come in if it affects kids. If there's violence going outside the community, it'll usually come in. So if they're being bullied out in the cyber world, which is not controlled by our schools, it may come into the building, and we need to be aware of it. And I think it's very hard. I mean, I know there's a lot of legislation that's out there that's coming down on schools to be much more aware of this. So that means we need to open our eyes, we need to do more training, and we need to understand the ramifications of it. And we need to listen to kids. We need to really hear what they're saying when they're being bullied. And maybe it is training on how to talk to kids. What questions should we be asking, which we can certainly work on as well. But to hear what they say and be very aware of it all, because it is very scary. I mean, we've already seen kids in the country who've killed themselves over this. And, you know, anyone that feels that threatened or that upset about something, we really need to look at that as a society and say, what is happening with it? I know school districts put, you know, they may block certain sites, but some of these kids are getting so good they can circumvent them, or they can obviously go somewhere else and get on the site as well, too. And the phones, you know, they can say no phones, no cell phones on campus. Does that mean they're going to be aware of every, you know, if they've got a big school, can they be aware of every child that brings a phone in? Or can they just go out to the parking lot and maybe it's in their car?
Right.
Jeremy, who, especially as a parent, you know, when a child finds themselves, you know, the victim of cyberbullying, I mean, your first thought as to who they go to, is it the teacher, is it the guidance counselor, is it the parent?
I think it's whatever adult that child feels most comfortable talking to, and that's a conversation I have with both of my kids. It doesn't necessarily have to be me. My big thing is if something's happening that makes you feel uncomfortable, that you go to somebody that you trust that you can talk to. So it could be any one of those people. You know, I think we need to do a better job in educating our kids and making our kids feel more comfortable going to those people. And I think that all goes back to what Ann was talking about earlier, where we talk about awareness and education, and there needs to be consistency. We have to have a common language. We have to have a common understanding of what the problem is. I think too often we don't want to acknowledge those statistics. We don't want to have to accept the fact that it's real, because it is so different than maybe what we experienced when we were growing up. There is still that mentality with a lot of people that, oh, you know, this is just a rite of passage. It's just part of life. Everybody experiences bullying. You know, boys will be boys or kids will be kids, and we tend to make excuses for it. And we need to stop excusing it. We need to know exactly what it is. We need to identify it the same way, and we have to all be working with the same preventative measures on how we're going to address it. The number one key is to stop it before it happens. So as a parent, what you want to do is you want to educate your kids. You want to talk to them about the ramifications about putting something as profound as you know, something negative or some bullying type message out into cyberspace where it can be viewed by you know, the whole world. Again, kids get stuck in that mentality and they only view their world as kind of the community in which they live, and they don't necessarily recognize that it goes beyond that. Again, if I send something out to the people on my Facebook page, any one of my friends could then forward that on to the 500 friends they have, who could then send it on to the and within 3 or 4 clicks, 1 million people have access to whatever information I just put out there. And I don't think that kids fully understand that. So I think, you know, education and awareness is the first step. You have to recognize that it is a problem. You have to be willing to work towards solving the problem.
Okay, all right. Well, we've got much more to talk about on this topic, absolutely. We have to take a quick break, but we want to remind you to go to our blog, centralissues.org, and answer our question of the day, which is, what do you think schools should be doing to put an end to cyberbullying? We'll be right back.
On the next WCNY Connected, we'll have more movie passes to give away, but you have to watch to win.
Santa Paws drops by for another year at the SPCA, and Ted and I will show off our culinary skills and tell you about our brand new cookbook.
Thursday at 9 p.m. on WCNY Connected.
Make your plans for New Year's Eve now and join WCNY for The Party at the On Center in Syracuse. Tickets are available now at WCNY.org. Connect with WCNY on your favorite social networking sites. Visit WCNY.org to see them all.
Welcome back to Central Issues. I'm Dave Dellecese. Joining me tonight is Ann Lansing. She is the Executive Director of Utica Safe Schools, and Jeremy Butler, who is Director of Programs for Utica Safe Schools. Welcome back to both of you.
Thank you.
Now, we were talking before the break about awareness, education, ways to prevent cyberbullying, which is running rampant, as we see in the news all the time. Jerry, one of the things that I think educators and parents, as you were saying, need to be aware of is what doesn't work and what can probably make the situation much worse.
Absolutely. I think if you look at any bullying statistic, and if you look at the research, a modest, I guess, amount would suggest that about 20% of kids acknowledge that they were bullies at some point in their life. And again, that's probably a very low number. Some of the new research coming out has that figure much higher. But if we accept that fact that 20% of our kids, or 1/5 of our kids, are bullies at some point in their development or their lives, some of the policies and procedures and things that people think will work are zero tolerance policies. But when you really put that in a practical framework and you look at 20% of your student population, a school district can't possibly suspend 20% of their population. A school of 500 kids would then have to get rid of 100 kids. Very unrealistic. We know that doesn't work. Other things and strategies that other organizations and schools try are conflict resolution or mediation programs. Again, the reason those things don't work is because you don't want to have that power imbalance. You don't want to re-victimize the child that's been bullied. And the analogy I use with schools is you would never try to mediate a situation where a parent physically abused a child. And I think by saying that drives that point home. So you would never sit a bully down with the person that they victimized. There are, I think, school districts try, and they do some smaller measures like assemblies, PTO meetings, and things of that nature, and they're very good, and they can be effective in the short term, but they do nothing to address the long-term systematic issues that schools face with bullying and cyberbullying.
And
jumping off of that there, what are schools doing that's on the right track?
I think educating their teachers and looking at, who is a bully, who is the bullied person, and also looking at, we need to look at bystanders too, who saw what happened, and give them a voice to be able to say, tell them, we want you to speak up too. A lot of us probably grew up witnessing it ourselves or seeing it and just don't want to get involved. And how important it is for some students who really feel like there is no one out there helping them, no one out there supporting them. It really is important. And again, I think we need to recognize what adults are bullies and not promote that behavior, not allow that behavior to continue either when they come in.
Do you think that there is an obstacle in getting through to parents? Jeremy had used the phrase earlier, kids will be kids, which is sometimes an excuse. Do you think that it's difficult for organizations, like Utica Safe Schools and school districts in general, to try and get through to parents that this is much more serious than, a simple, youths being youth?
And I think it is interesting because I think the point that Jeremy brought up too was it's a rite of passage. We look at hazing for fraternities or sororities, and what does that all mean? And I think you add it on, and I think you add on this other layer of cyberbullying. It brings it to a whole nother place that you can possibly never get away from it, and it can follow you for a very long time in your life. Where from me being bullied in school, once I graduated, it was done. And for some of these people, it can come back to haunt them much later in life, and we really need to start looking at all of that as well.
Jeremy, do you think, and you can speak as a parent as well here,
Sure.
In terms of parents who kind of shrug things off or shrug the seriousness of these issues off, do you think that it raises some questions about where the standards are set in each household and whether or not they maybe need to be reevaluated?
I think it can raise those questions, but I think it's just, again, it's that fear of the unknown. It's an uncomfortable subject for parents to want to talk about, whether your child is the bully or the victim of the bullying. I think kids will come to parents and indirectly open up that things are going on at school, and a lot of times we just kind of discredit it, and we just, suck it up, keep moving forward, everything will be okay, go talk to your teacher. And a lot of times we pass those off, or we don't recognize those warning signals soon enough, and we don't actually spend enough time sitting down with our kids. I think, the old family tradition of sitting down at 5 o'clock and having dinner isn't necessarily the way things are done anymore. And I think there's a lot that gets lost now just in terms of communication with our kids. I think we don't know how to talk to our kids about sensitive subjects like bullying. And again, for a parent to acknowledge that their child is a bully or is being bullied is a difficult thing to do.
A lot of the times, at least in a lot of the reports that you hear, sometimes at least one of the people involved in a lot of these bullying is somebody who the family or the child is close to, friends with, and they really feel the sting of betrayal, as you hear a lot in these reports. Do you think it becomes difficult, not just, I guess, for the children and the parent, to accept that when it comes to trying to handle the situation and address it?
Sure. I think there's a lot of situations where kids maybe start down a path where they think, and you had said earlier that they're just joking around or they're doing it because they think it will be funny. And again, not understanding the dynamics of how large or how quick that can become a bigger issue, I think they can lose sight of that, and it can strain some of those relationships, and it can make the situation more challenging or more difficult. Absolutely.
And you had said awareness, is key in prevention education. What are some of the biggest tips that you can give educators and parents in terms of cyberbullying?
I think that open communication with your kids is the biggest thing. I think we should all be aware with our students if they're acting different. What's going on? It might be this, it could be a variety of different things. It could just be being a kid, but we want to know ahead of time. And I think the other big point is listening to them. It's easy to blow off, this kid made fun of me or somebody said something to me when it seemed like one incident. But I think we have to look on it, is it still going on? So if your child says something to you, maybe keep exploring it a couple days later. Has anything else happened? Because that's where we need to look at the trend of it. Maybe it was just one incident and nothing was said again, but typically it may not be, and we really need to be talking about that and listening to what they're saying.
I think another key thing, and Ann touched on it earlier, was to empower the bystanders. And in bully language, we talk about turning bystanders into upstanders. And an analogy that I use when I've done bullying trainings with kids and with schools is, if you're going to sit down and I pull the chair out from behind you and you fall on the ground and everybody laughs, I'm going to be more inclined to do that again. But if I go to pull that chair out from underneath you and I pull it out and you fall, nobody laughs, and somebody comes and helps you up, I'm going to be less likely to do that again in the future. So it's really educating kids. Ann talked earlier about building empathy, and it's not just building empathy with bullies. It's not just doing the support for the victims, which you need to do with both parties, but it's really addressing the population as a whole. Culture change, again, going back to having that clear, consistent definition, message, and intervention on how we're going to address it school-wide, so that it's not, well, I'm going to deal with it one way, Ann's going to deal with it another way, you're going to deal with it another way, because that's going to confuse kids, and kids aren't going to know where to turn, and they're not going to know, they're not going to feel safe, they're not going to have that level of support. So there has to be consistency across the board on how we approach this issue.
A lot of parents, and I'm sure that this conversation would probably frighten many of them in terms of the walking down that road, but are always, as the technology grows, faced with the children who want, as Jeremy was mentioning, the latest phone, or they want a Facebook page, and parents go back and forth. What is age appropriate? What is not? If they give them the cell phone for emergencies, is it going to be used for emergencies? Where do you guys stand on that, and what's age appropriate?
I think it's very interesting, talking to some school districts who are actually looking at that. What should their policies and procedures be? You've got one parent on one hand who said, I want to have access to my child all the time. And we're saying, well, you can't have cell phones in school. Where does that bridge come? Because obviously we want to support families and what's going on with them. And I think there needs to be a lot of conversation back and forth on both sides. And I think parents need to understand that, we do have policies and procedures for a reason within the schools. And it's not to say your specific child can't do this, but we look at all of that and do some prevention with it. I encourage parents to get involved in PTOs. Really get involved in your schools. We don't have enough parent involvement across the country. I know it's time consuming and I know there's a lot of things going on, but through PTOs we can bring in trainers. We can talk to parents. What do they want to know? They can talk to other parents about what they're experiencing as well too. And I think that's really important. We all need to get involved.
And my feeling is, as a parent, as an educator, is that technology is a tool. I mean, that's all it is. It's there to make our lives easier, and parents need to view it as such. And so it's not to say don't give your kid that smartphone, or don't give them a cell phone, or don't allow them to use the internet or the computer, because there's great value in that. But just in the same way that you wouldn't hand your kid a power saw without teaching them how to use it, when you give them the technology, you need to first educate yourself on it so you know what you're giving them, and then educate them to use it appropriately, and have those conversations about this is the purpose for it, this is how it has to be used, this is the way that you shouldn't use it in terms of misuse, and modeling that behavior. Again, a lot of kids are reflections of what they're seeing at home. So if we're misusing the technology, then we can't expect our kids not to be following suit.
On the topic of parents and monitoring, decades ago it was the little red diaries with the locks on it. These days there's software out there and everything else. Where do you guys fall in terms of where the lines are for parents and privacy?
Well, I think, I mean, again, you're getting into a personal issue where it's going to be different for every family. And I think it's what is that family comfortable with? What is that child comfortable with? Again, some of us grew up in open families where every single secret is shared amongst the entire family. Other people grow up in very close-knit, closed families where you don't talk about anything outside the family walls. So it's really more of a personal decision. But again, I think there still has to be that education piece to let kids know that the minute you put this up on a blog, the minute you put this up on your Facebook page, everybody has access. You know, Facebook, the minute you post a picture, they have control of that picture. It belongs to them. It becomes their property. A lot of people don't know that. So even if I go on there and I delete it, they still have rights to it, I believe, for like 6 months afterwards. So it's really, it's all about education and awareness with our kids.
All right, Jeremy Butler and Ann Lansing from Utica Safe Schools, thank you very much. We could go on for an hour on cyberbullying.
Absolutely.
Well, we're out of time, but if you'd like more information, please visit their website, Healthy Students, or USSHealthyStudents.org, I should say, or you can call them at 315-792-2205, and that information is right there on your screen. Well, that does it for tonight. Please don't forget to visit our blog, centralissues.org, and answer the question of the day. What do you think schools should be doing to put an end to cyberbullying? On the next CI, we will be discussing the debate to sell Van Doyne Nursing Home. Thank you for watching. I'm Dave Dellecese.
This program is brought to you by the members of WCNY.